summarize various happenings in Jamaica and the world in the past. Journey to the past. News, sports, music, entertainment, shopping, and the culture that was unfolding at the time. Before we start our feature presentation, 1967 Part 1, let's first take a brief nostalgic recap of some significant highlights in the year 1962. A recap of highlights in 1962. The population of Jamaica in 1962 was 1,646,594.
I was to leave for Jamaica in 2 hours. Bond. James Bond.
On Sunday, January 14, 1962, a technical team flew into Jamaica to start filming various scenes across the island for the first ever James Bond 007 movie, Dr. No. The West Indies Federation was established on January 3, 1958, with the aim of establishing a political union among 10 British Caribbean territories: Antigua and Barbuda, Barbados, Dominica, Grenada, Jamaica, Montserrat, the then St. Kitts, Nevis, Anguilla, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and Trinidad and Tobago. In a national referendum on September 19, 1961, Jamaicans voted to withdraw from the Federation. Jamaica's decision to leave the Federation was shortly followed by the withdrawal of Trinidad and Tobago, a decisive development which eventually led to the demise of the West Indies Federation on May 31, 1962. Jamaica sought national independence from Britain. From February 1 to February 9, 1962, a joint Jamaican parliamentary delegation attended a conference at Lancaster House in London to discuss with the British government the granting of Jamaica's independence and to agree upon a suitable constitution for the island. On February 8, Britain agreed to Jamaica having its Independence Day on August 6, 1962, the first Monday in August. On April 10, 1962, Jamaicans went to the polls to elect a new parliament and new government to take Jamaica into independence. The Jamaica Labour Party, the JLP, won the 1962 general election, taking 26 seats to the People's National Party, the PNP, 19 seats. On April 3, 1962, Jamaica's motto for independence was announced: "Out of many, one people." The motto was inscribed on the 300-year-old Jamaican coat of arms, which was retained without any alterations. The national flag of Jamaica was approved in the House of Representatives on June 20, 1962. On July 19, 1962, the national anthem of Jamaica, written by the Reverend Hugh Sherlock, was selected. The music was composed by the Honorable Robert Lightburn, Minister of Trade and Industry, and arranged by Mapletoft Poole and Mrs. Poole. The Jamaica Defense Force, consisting of the Jamaica Regiment and Jamaica National Reserve, came into being on July 31, 1962, replacing the British West India Regiment. Jamaica's National Stadium was officially opened by Her Royal Highness Princess Margaret on August 4, 1962, at a youth rally. On the same day, the princess also unveiled the statue by sculptor Alvin Marriott, which depicts the Jamaican athlete at the National Stadium. Jamaica's newly elected Premier, Sir Alexander Bustamante, became Jamaica's first Prime Minister when Jamaica achieved its independence from Britain on August 6, 1962. Sir Kenneth Blackburn, who was the island's last colonial governor, became Jamaica's first Governor General. He was replaced by Jamaica's first native Governor General, Sir Clifford Campbell, formerly President of the Senate, on December 1, 1962. Sir Clifford's appointment marked the end of a long line of British colonial governors who represented the Crown in Jamaica from 1866 to 1962. On August 7, Princess Margaret presided over the first session of the First Parliament of Independent Jamaica at Gordon House. On September 18, 1962, Jamaica became the 107th member of the United Nations, the UN. Also on September 18, Jamaica was admitted to membership of the World Bank, and on September 19, Jamaica became a member of the International Monetary Fund, the IMF. Figures published by the American Metal Market showed that Jamaica by far was the top bauxite producer in the world in 1961-1962. On August 2, 1962, the University College of the West Indies, the UCWI, dropped the college from its name and became a university in its own right, the University of the West Indies, the UWI.
History is about to be made in the science of communication among men.
Telstar, the world's first active communication satellite, was launched by the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, on July 10, 1962. On July 12, it relayed the world's first live transatlantic television signal in history. This ushered in a new era of communications that paved the way for the global connected world that we live in today. Yes, indeed, July 12, 1962 was a day information went global. In sports news for 1962, the West Indies cricket team whitewashed India 5-0 in the 5-match Test series played in the West Indies from February 15 to April 18. The mighty West Indies team, the best side in the world at the time, was captained by Frank Worrell. Defending champions Brazil won the 7th staging of the FIFA World Cup football final on June 17, 1962, held in Chile, South America. Brazil came from a goal down to beat Czechoslovakia 3-1.
Boxing's contribution to Jamaica's independence celebrations.
Jamaica's 21-year-old boxing champ Bonnie Grant became the new British Empire lightweight champion by unanimous decision when he stripped Britain's 26-year-old Dave Charnley of the title at the National Stadium on the eve of Jamaica's independence. The fight started late in the night of August 4 and actually ended in the early morning of August 5.
So, to the delight of Jamaica, Bunny Grant is Empire lightweight champion, a little man with a big future.
Jamaica hosted the 9th Central American and Caribbean CAC Games at the newly constructed National Stadium from August 11 to 25, 1962. Jamaica finished 6th with 8 gold, 7 silver, and 9 bronze medals. The 7th British Empire and Commonwealth Games were held in Perth, Australia from November 22 to December 1. Jamaica finished 8th in the overall standings with 5 medals, 3 gold, 1 silver, and a bronze.
George Kerr, Jamaica, leading from Bobby Brightwell and Omano of Uganda.
After the failed Bay of Pigs invasion of Cuba on April 19, 1961, by 1,400 CIA-trained Cuban exiles, Cuban President Fidel Castro sought help from the Soviet Union to deter any further U.S. aggression. In August 1962, the Soviet Union began to secretly deploy nuclear missiles to Cuba, not only to protect Cuba, but to counteract threats from U.S. missiles in Turkey. The U.S. demanded the removal of the nuclear missile site in Cuba and ordered a naval blockade over Cuba. On October 24, 1962, for the first time in history, the U.S. military set itself to DEFCON 2, the defensive readiness one step away from nuclear war. The Cuban Missile Crisis was a pivotal moment in the Cold War era when the US and the Soviet Union stood close to Armageddon than at any other moment in history. The crisis, however, was averted by diplomacy between the US and the Soviet Union. The agreement was that the US will remove the nuclear missiles from Turkey and promise never to invade Cuba. In exchange, that the Soviet missiles in Cuba will be dismantled and removed under United Nations inspection. Jamaica is situated 90 miles from Cuba, and if there was a nuclear war in 1962, it would have had dire consequences for the new independent nation of Jamaica and the world. We just gave you a nostalgic recap of some of the highlights of 1962. After the break, we will begin our feature presentation of the year 1967 on Journey to the Past, 1967 Part 1. Soon come back. Welcome back, folks. We know that you're eager to start the journey to 1967. Let's go. In January 1967, Dr. Philip Sherlock, Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, UWI, and Mr. Herbert MacDonald, Sports Administrator, were both made Knight Commander of the Order of the British Empire, the KBE. They headed a list of 26 Jamaicans who were honored in Queen Elizabeth II New Year's Honors List. Dr. Philip Sherlock was also awarded a Golden Musgrave Medal in January 1967 by the Institute of Jamaica in recognition of his distinguished performance as a poet and essayist, presenting the folklore and history of Jamaica, and also for his distinguished service to education and culture in Jamaica and the West Indies. This was the 6th gold medal to be awarded by the Institute. A very popular segment of Journey to the Past has been our feature of the music back then. So we'll get things rocking with some oldies but goodies. In 1966, rocksteady replaced the ska as Jamaica's indigenous popular music. Some of the 1967 rocksteady hit songs were
Better get ready, come to rocksteady. Yeah. You got to do this new dance. Hope you are ready. You got to do it just like Uncle Freddy. If you don't know, just shake your head, rock your body line, shake your shoulders, everything in time, then sing. Oh, 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 oh.
Say that you care. If you say you love me, gladly, I'd gladly be there, like a puppet on the string. I'll be just like a merry-go-round, with all the fun in the air. One day I'm feeling down on the ground, then I look in the air. You and your smiling face doesn't mean a thing to me. Any man will pick you up just because of that smile you've got. But after knowing you as much as he's gonna leave you just like I did.
The old town talking about you and your new guy. You're flying high now in your single world, but they're gonna need
I'm gonna feel someday, somehow, then, and it's gonna be too late. Darling, where you go again, I hear them say, you don't want me, you don't need me, not anymore. I hear them say, you don't love me, you don't care for me, not anymore. Look at all those things I obey for you. Look at all those struggles you make me feel. Now you have gone and have left me, but you never get away. You never get away. I hear them say,
good music never dies. Whoa! What a way the music did nice in a 67 and still nice today. Just listen to that mellow bass line. Yes, a significant feature of the rocksteady, which unlike the ska, gave the bass player more time to play his instrument. The rocksteady era only lasted 2 years. Yes, 2 years. But the era created some of Jamaica's best produced songs and vocal renditions. A question for modern day DJs and singers. Will your songs still be popular 50 plus years from today? Food for thought.
Someone will make you pay.
On April 10, 1962, Jamaicans went to the polls to choose a first government for independent Jamaica. The Jamaica Labour Party, the JLP, led by Sir Alexander Bustamante, gained victory over the People's National Party, the PNP, led by Norman Manley. The JLP won 26 of the 45 seats. The voter turnout in 1962 was 72.9%. On December 12, 1966, 8 new constituencies were approved by the House of Representatives, bringing the total to 53 constituencies. This came into effect on January 3, 1967. 1967 was the year of general election in Jamaica, and in January 1967, the JLP-led government gave some subtle indications that general election would be held early in the year by February.
So the election's near. Who are you voting for?
That's my business. You're fast. You're out of order.
By January 20, the JLP had completed the selection of all but one of its 53 candidates for the upcoming general election. For the outstanding constituency of Southern Clarendon, a final decision was made over the weekend of January 21-22, when the 82-year-old Sir Alexander Bustamante decided not to seek re-election for that seat due to his prolonged ill health and the fact that he had not recovered sufficiently to continue in active politics. Senator the Honorable Hugh Shearer, Vice President of the Bustamante Industrial Trade Union, the BITU, and leader of government business in the Senate, was selected to contest the Southern Clarendon seat for the JLP. Sir Alexander Bustamante featured prominently as a champion for the oppressed workers in the 1938 labor upheavals in Jamaica. He founded the BITU in 1938. On July 8, 1943, he founded the JLP as a political wing of the BITU. Bustamante was previously a member of the PNP. Sir Alexander was first elected to office in 1944, and during his political career, he became a chief minister and a premier in colonial Jamaica, and the first Prime Minister of independent Jamaica. On his retirement from active politics in 1967, he continued to remain the leader of the BITU and the JLP.
So Buster step down?
Yes. And Shearer, step up.
Buster retire?
Yes. You want a man work harder from 38? Him deserve a good rest.
On January 24, 1967, Parliament was dissolved at midnight to make way for the holding of general election within the statutory period not exceeding 3 months. The following day, January 25, the date of the 1967 general election was greeted with a tumultuous roar by JLP party supporters when it was announced by the acting Prime Minister, the Honorable Donald Sangster, at the JLP public meeting in Halfway Tree. The general election for 1967 was set for Tuesday, February 21. The party's corporate area candidates were presented at the meeting. Nomination day was set for Monday, January 30. There were violent disturbances towards the end of the massive JLP meeting in Halfway Tree after the police accosted and arrested an alleged bike thief. A section of the crowd objected to this, set upon the police, and a melee started. Bottles and stones were thrown and shots were fired. One man was shot, 3 policemen were injured by missiles, and the Honorable Edward Siaga, Minister of Development and Welfare, sustained a deep cut from a thrown bottle on his right forehead after he attempted to protect a policeman who was being set upon by the mob. At the PNP's public meeting on the same night at Hanover and Law Street, downtown Kingston, the young and charismatic Michael Manley was presented by his father, party leader Norman Manley, as a candidate for Central Kingston. Party supporters sang party songs and popular rocksteady hit tunes, waved brooms, lighted candles, and cheered their leaders. Mr. Norman Manley told the crowd that the JLP committed, quote, a rape of democracy, end quote, in deciding to hold a snap election. But it seems the PNP was caught unprepared for such an election on short notice, even though they knew general election was constitutionally due to be held in Jamaica in 1967 by July 10. The JLP took the decision for early elections to take advantage of Bustamante's birthday on February 24. A JLP victory at the polls on February 21 would be a fitting present for Bustamante's JLP, the party founded in 1943 and has led ever since.
Which party you voting for?
I am not voting for no party. I am voting for the best candidate in my constituency.
With the date of general election announced, the political parties' election machinery and campaigning went into high gear. The JLP publicity for the 1967 general election was already in full swing with 2 themes. The first being, the JLP has done more for you since 1962. It depicted the JLP's achievements for the country as government since 1962. The second theme looked to the future. The JLP will do more for you by 1972. The JLP campaign symbol was a bell.
What a long time we don't meet. I'm glad to see you.
What happened? Your vote catching now.
The PNP's election theme was centered around vote to be free, free from corruption, violence, selfishness, unemployment, and other social ills allegedly brought on by the JLP. The PNP countered that the JLP had done more for the rich and privileged since 1962 and highlighted the positives that the PNP had done for Jamaica before 1962. They also returned with a slogan for 1955, sweep them out, and their election campaign symbol was the broom. However, their symbol on the election ballot was the head.
Boy, what a long time I don't see you. Come, have a drink with me.
Don't bother with that. I'm not voting for your party. I'm voting for my own.
On nomination day, January 30, the PNP and the JLP nominated candidates for all 53 seats, while 9 other candidates from splinter groups and independents were also seeking seats. Political candidates could rent a public address system from Stanley Motors at 224 Jeffrard Place, Kingston for their meetings and campaigning.
What a lot of promises that you have now. Yes, and when they get in, they forget all about it.
We now take our second break on Journey to the Past 1967 Part 1. Don't change that channel. So glad you stayed with us on Journey to the Past 1967 Part 1. Political violence reared its ugly head in 1967. On February 2, the Gleaner Company Limited sent telegrams to the 8 candidates in the troubled, violence-prone western sections of Kingston, inviting them to subscribe to outlaw violence. All 8 of them agreed without hesitancy and subscribed to the pledge as seen on your screen. Despite the pledge, the days leading up to the holding of the 1967 general election were marked by several violent clashes between supporters of the JLP and supporters of the PNP, quite unlike the peaceful and virtually incident-free 1962 general election campaign period. In order to guarantee a peaceful election in 1967, a joint police-military control headquarters was established at Devon House Hope Road to coordinate all anti-violence operations. The Devon House Police Control Center reported that 419 unlicensed firearms and 1,228 rounds of ammunition were surrendered without risk of prosecution across the island up to the midnight amnesty deadline of February 15. On February 17, police and military personnel cast their votes in the general election.
You say I'll dream about which party win. How it go?
Yes, but I can't remember the part who win.
RJR Radio and JBC Radio and Television provided full comprehensive coverage on Election Day. A vast network of telephone and telegraph communications were set up island-wide. The JBC team of election commentators and analysts consisted of Archie Singham, Dr. Roy Auger, Gloria Lanneman, Louis Biles, and Rex Netterford. The RJR team comprised Frank Hill, Maurice Cargill, Peter Abrams, Gloria Kumpel, Peter Walker, J.C. Prout, John Colley, Kiba McFarlane, Carol Record, Jeff Barnes, David Banks, and IT. RJR, in their effort to provide the best coverage of the 1967 general election, employed a scientifically oriented IBM 1620 computer by the UWI Mona, nicknamed IT. This was the first time in Jamaica's history that a computer was used to analyze the election result. On election night, RJR panel of specialists supplied questions to IT so as to predict the outcome of the election.
Dance with me, I have done more for you. Dance with me, I will set you free.
I can't see the winner clearly, too much gun smoke.
You did get any of the political party then? Ah boy, I wasn't that lucky.
So we do. Election or no election. Take it easy. Remember, we're still in Lent.
In the general election in Jamaica on February 21, 1967, Donald Sangster led the Jamaica Labour Party, the JLP, to a decisive win over the People's National Party, the PNP, led by Norman Manley. The JLP won 33 seats to the PNP's 20. Voter turnout was 82.24%. During the election campaign, PNP leader Mr. Norman Manley charged that the 1967 general election was bogus because he claimed bogus registrations had taken place. In addition, he said that some 250,000 persons were not included on the voters list. Manley insisted that wrong was done right inside the electoral office of Jamaica. The Gleaner's political reporter, in his analysis of the outcome of the 1967 general elections, believed a major issue was a question of leadership. The electors were asked to choose between Norman Manley and Donald Sangster to run the country. He felt the PNP was well aware of this, as seen from the manner in which the party conducted its entire election advertising program. Mr. Norman Manley was put forward and emphasized all the way in speeches made on radio and elsewhere the theme which ran something like this: Sir Alexander Bustamante has retired and the JLP has no leader. Instead, the PNP has a known leader, Norman Manley, who has shown he can govern the country through 7 years of premiership. On the other hand, the JLP, which started their advertising campaign emphasizing their achievements since 1962, finally came out with ads to counter this by stating that Donald Sangster was a leader and would be Prime Minister if the JLP won the election. The political reporter also looked at the question of violence involved with the election. The PNP tried to exploit this to the fullest, especially when an alleged armed and fortified van carrying JLP supporters was intercepted by the police. It was hoped that the murderous violence of the city's party supporters, if labeled JLP created, would scare rural voters into voting against the JLP. According to the political reporter, this campaign was so well executed that it prompted the JLP into mounting a counter-offensive to prove that the PNP was a party of violence.
You know you can't keep full of lipstick, so.
This vote as in, you remember we did vote.
On February 22, the day following the general election, the Honorable Donald Sangster was sworn in at King's House as Jamaica's second Prime Minister. Jamaica's first Prime Minister, Sir Alexander Bustamante, retired from active politics in January 1967, and the JLP's victory at the polls was a fitting present for Sir Alex's 83rd birthday on February 24th. The 12 ministers in the new JLP cabinet were sworn in by the Governor-General, Sir Clifford Campbell, between February 27 and 28. All were members of the past cabinet.
You have any more of the election party them?
That recipe is only for election time.
On the morning of February 28, beginning at the Harborview roundabout, the JLP celebrated victory at the polls with a 4-day all-island victory motorcade headed by Mr. Donald Sangster.
What's in the news today?
Politics.
On March 15, the PNP members of Parliament and members of the Senate boycotted the opening of Parliament as a form of demonstration of how strongly they felt about what they claim was the unfair conduct of the recent general election. The PNP charged, quote, all Jamaica knows that the voters' list as well as the constituency boundaries were rigged for the purpose of ensuring that the JLP retained power. End quote. On March 18, at a special conference held at their Duke Street headquarters, the Bustamante Industrial Trade Union, the BITU, issued a statement accusing the PNP of irresponsible and mischievous conduct in connection with accusations about the elections. They also pointed out the fact that Mr. Norman Manley confidently predicted a general election victory for the PNP in several of his speeches. Now that the heat of the general elections of 1967 is over, let's cool off with an ice-cold Red Stripe beer. It came in a long neck bottle in 1967 and cost only 1 shilling. Catch us after the break on Journey to the Past, 1967 Part 1. Cheers! We are back on Journey to the Past, 1967 Part 1.
What you did like about the political campaign?
Boy, the curry goat.
On Saturday, March 18, 1967, the recently elected Prime Minister, the Honorable Donald Sangster, fell ill while at Newcastle in what was diagnosed as stomach upset, with the classic symptoms believed to be caused by gastrointestinal virus, getting prevalent in the island and the Caribbean in general at the time. The Prime Minister had gone to Newcastle on Wednesday night, March 15, to start preparing for his 1967 budget as Minister of Finance, and was scheduled to return to the city on Saturday morning for appointments at his office. However, he was immediately confined to Vale Royal by his doctors and ordered to take a complete rest. On March 20, complications developed, among them excessively high blood pressure, and after consultations it was decided that the Prime Minister should be flown to Canada for a thorough medical examination and such specialist treatment as may be required. Mr. Sangster left the island to Montreal, Canada by a special jet flight arranged by the United States Ambassador to Jamaica, Mr. W. Thomas Beale. Before his departure to Canada, the Prime Minister recommended that the Honorable David Clement Tavares, second deputy leader of the JLP, act as Prime Minister while he was away from the island, and that the Minister of Development and Welfare, the Honorable Edward Seaga, should take over the Ministry of Finance and continue to prepare the budget. At the Montreal Neurological Institute of the Royal Victoria Hospital, Canada, Mr. Sangster underwent a series of intense medical examinations conducted by some of the top medical specialists in Canada. Tests carried out on the ailing Prime Minister confirmed on March 22 that he suffered a small hemorrhage from a blood vessel in the tissue covering the brain. The Prime Minister gradually sunk into a semi-conscious state. It was reported that he was unable to speak most of the time and did not recognize cabinet members and close friends who visited his bedside daily. The Gleaner newspaper kept the nation informed on the Prime Minister's condition on a daily basis.
Sweet hour of prayer,
sweet hour of prayer, I wait for thee, sweet hour.
Dr. Herbert Eldamara, Minister of Health, who visited Mr. Sangster, reported that no one can say when the Prime Minister will recover and to what extent. The Canadian medical team kept Mr. Sangster on drugs to prevent blood from the burst blood vessel in his brain forming a fatal clot on the brain. By the beginning of April, Mr. Sangster's condition had deteriorated. He had fallen into a deep coma, and there was now fear for his life. On April 5, the JLP members of the House of Representatives were summoned by top leaders of the party to a meeting, which would enable guidance to be given to the Governor-General, Sir Clifford Campbell, in the exercise of his functions in relation to the naming of a successor Prime Minister, should Mr. Sangster be unable to resume. The JLP members reached the consensus that Mr. Hugh Shearer should be asked to succeed Mr. Sangster in case of his death or incapacity. All hope for survival of the Prime Minister, who lay critically ill in Canada, was given up by the team of medical specialists attending to him. It was now a matter of time before the end would come. On April 7, the Prime Minister was knighted by the Queen. He was now Knight Commander of the Royal Victorian Order, KCVO. He was scheduled to be knighted in June 1967 on the Queen's official birthday celebration, but was brought forward because of his grave condition. Sadly, Sir Donald Byrne Sangster, Jamaica's second Prime Minister, died at 12:45 p.m. on Tuesday, April 11, 1967, at the Montreal Neurological Institute, Canada, where his strong constitution had been fighting a losing battle against brain hemorrhage since March 22. He was 55 years of age. Death came to Sir Donald, the quiet, unassuming Jamaican, who rose to the highest position in the land just 4 days before he had been knighted by the Queen, and less than 2 months after he finally became Prime Minister of Jamaica in his own right. Jamaica's third Prime Minister in independence, 43-year-old the Honorable Hugh Lawson Shearer, was sworn in on April 11 by the Governor General, Sir Clifford Campbell, at King's House. The swearing-in came just 4 hours after the death of the former Prime Minister, Sir Donald Sangster. Sir Donald's body lay in state at the Christ Church Cathedral in Montreal on April 12 to permit Jamaicans in Montreal and other parts of Canada and Canadian friends of Jamaica to pay their last respects. Sir Donald Sangster's body arrived in Montego Bay, Jamaica on April 13 at 9 in the morning. The flag-draped casket began its last sad journey through the Jamaican countryside that he knew and loved so well. The body lay in state at the St. Elizabeth Mountainside Anglican Church, where Sir Donald worshipped in his early life. It also lay in state at Chapelton Anglican Church, Clarendon, where thousands of his constituents paid their last respects. For the nation, the body lay in state at the Kingston Parish Church from April 15 to 17. Death accentuated the popularity of the late Prime Minister, as thousands filed past to get a last look at Sir Donald. 2 lines of people extended from the church down King Street to Barry Street, curving Barry Street and going to Temple Lane. On the casket lay the insignia of the Knight Commander of the Royal Victorian Order. The state funeral of Sir Donald Sangster took place on the afternoon of April 17, beginning at the Kingston Parish Church and ending at the King George VI Memorial Park, now Heroes Park. His successor, the Honorable Hugh Shearer, led the nation in mourning. The service, conducted by Reverend Percival Gibson, Anglican Bishop of Jamaica, was deeply stirring. A 56-gun salute was fired by a Jamaica Defense Force team from the George VI Park at the end of the church ceremony. From the church, the body of Sir Donald moved in solemn procession through the city to the George VI Park, where it was buried in a specially consecrated spot. In the line of Jamaican prime ministers to be laid to rest at the site. An estimated crowd of 250,000 swarmed the park for the burial. More than 1,000 soldiers took part in the funeral procession. Other uniform organizations numbered nearly 2,000. On On April 18, the Honorable Hugh Shearer, in his first broadcast to the nation as Prime Minister, announced that 5 memorials had been decided by the government of Jamaica in honor of Sir Donald. They were as follows. The new income tax office on East Street, Kingston, would be named the Sir Donald Sangster Building. The Montego Bay International Airport would be renamed Sangster International Airport. A commemorative stamp would be issued bearing his portrait. A public fund had been launched to finance another suitable memorial, and a mausoleum for which designs had been invited would be built on the site of Sir Donald Sangster's grave. On April 27, 1967, an estimated 1,000 persons attended a memorial service at Westminster Abbey in England to honor Sir Donald Sangster. In our next program, we will look at the life and achievements of Sir Donald Sangster. We now take our final break on Journey to the Past 1967 Part 1. We really appreciate your company on Journey to the Past 1967 Part 1. Did you know that there were pigeon racings in Jamaica in 1967? Yes, in this Gleaner newspaper report, you can see a photo of the champion racing pigeon, Cherry. She scored a good race for Eddie Mayer in the open race from Montego Bay to Kingston on June 4. The race was put on by the Jamaica Racing Pigeon Club. Cherry's velocity was 993.46 yards per minute. She won the race and the Granville de Leon Cup in 2 hours and 26 minutes. The racing pigeon is a product of carefully controlled and selective breeding, which emphasizes the bird's physical stamina and speed, and the ability to return home from liberation points hundreds and even thousands of miles away. That is the basis of the unique sport of pigeon racing. Scientists theorize that the homing instinct of a racing pigeon is based on a sense of smell or possibly infrasound. A good racing pigeon in fair weather and a good help from the tailwind can fly upwards of 60 miles per hour and travel over 600 miles in a single day. The racing pigeon is officially home when it returns inside its loft after the race and clocked in. The flyer then removes the race band from the pigeon's leg and puts it in a small capsule. The capsule is dropped into a race timer, which locks and seals it. As the handle of the race timer is turned, the pigeon's race time is stamped on a paper tape. Today, the sport uses a computer chip attached to the pigeon's leg that is read electronically at the end of the race. Yes, the racing pigeons have an inner homing instinct, giving them the ability always to navigate their way home. Have you ever longed for a happy homecoming in the neighborhood where you grew up as a child? Singer Tom Jones will take us out on Journey to the Past 1967 Part 1 with his massive hit song in 1967, Green, Green Grass of Home. Let's first examine the meaning of the lyrics of the song before we sing along. Green, green grass of home depicts a man who was daydreaming about his childhood home and of a happy homecoming. However, he is actually locked in a prison cell on death row, awaiting his execution the very next day. While the first couple of verses of the song sound like a pleasurable homecoming, the final line of the song was in reference to the man's burial in his hometown after his execution, as they laid him beneath the green, green grass of home.
The old hometown looks the same
And I stepped down from the train, and there to meet me is my mama and papa. Down the road I look, and there runs Mary, hair of gold and lips like cherries. It's good to touch the green, green grass of home. Yes, they'll all come to meet me, arms reaching, smiling sweetly. It's good to touch the green, green grass of home. The old house is still standing, though the paint is cracked and dry. And there's that old oak tree that I used to play on. Down the lane I walk with my sweet Mary, hair of gold and lips like cherries. It's good to touch the green, green grass of home. Then I awake and look around me at four gray walls that surround me, and I realize, yes, I was only dreaming. For you see, there's a God, oh Lord, and there's a sad old padre. Arm in arm, we'll walk at daybreak. Then I'll touch the green, green grass of home. Yes, they'll all come to see me in the shade of that old oak tree as they lay me 'neath the green, green grass